Obin is standing before a monotonous beast, Utebe. Before this monster being, Obin looked like a thong of broom wielding a toothpick for a weapon. He was courageous, however, but his courage made rogue spirits to laugh so much they felt pity for Obinze. Bravely, Obinze attacked Utebe, stabbing his machete into its body like he was puncturing a big sack with toothpick. Against the appearance of things, Obinze's attacks caused Utebe a great deal of pain. His wail could be heard in the vast river world. Outside the dungeon, Nsha, the elder gods and the warmen of spirit world were puzzled as to how Obinze was able to cause Utebe the kind of pain that made him wail as he did. Believing he would come out of the dungeon alive, they all took their battle position in wait for his re-emergence. On the other hand, they eagerly waited for Urenma to show up. They knew she would. Back inside the dungeon, Utebe was crushing everything in his sight in a bid to crush Obinze to death and stop the searing pain he caused it. But the more Utebe fought, it made itself an easy target for Obinze. Their battle raged on endlessly until Utebe went down on its knees and slowly, with a shout which shook the river world, collapsed on the ground. When Utebe collapsed to the ground, the unthinkable happened. Obinze slumped to the ground and began to bleed from the mouth and his neck. Something had happened to his body in Akuta's shrine. The plant which spoke to him when he arrived in the river world broke the ground from under and took Obinze's weakening body and went under. 3 spirits emissaries were standing over Obinze's body and forcefully brushing their machete against his neck to sever it from his body. Obinze's neck was bleeding profusely. After the emissaries killed Akuta, it took them hours to break the protective spells which Akuta had put on Obinze. The spell revealed one secret to them. Akuta was consulting rogue spirits without the knowledge of the elder gods. The protective spell he put over Obinze was the powerful dark work of the rogue spirits. Even after they broke the spell, they still could not behead Obinze. They had to brush their machete against his skin. While Obinze's body resisted them, Urenma broke out on the scene and tore the emissaries apart. Nsha, the elder gods and the army of the river world were eagerly waiting for Obinze to come out. When Utebe shouted and collapsed on the ground, they knew Obinze had done the unbelievable. However, when the wait for him to come out became unending, the elder gods sent their army into the dungeon to retrieve Obinze. Inside the dungeon, rogue spirits didn't like the elder gods sending their fighting spirits into a place they considered their own ground, and so a battle broke out. The elder gods were going to win and subdue rogue spirits like they had done for ageless time, but the battle was what Obinze needed. Under the ground, the plant which had taken Obinze's body and Obojoro were pensively waiting for Urenmas to revive Obinze's body in the world of men so his spirit could wake in the river world. In Akuta's shrine, Urenma had swiftly subdued the emissaries by tearing them to shreds. They would find their lives again in the river world, but they would not dare stand before her in battle. With the herbs in Akuta's shrine and her own power, Urenma revived Obinze's body and stopped the bleeding. She raised over Obinze the same protective cloud she raised over her children and her parents when Ogidi came with his warmen to Uke. Having made sure Obinze was safe, she jumped into Akuta's green water pool. However, when she left, a set of monstrous eyes flicked open from the ground. Urenma did not see it, nor did she feel its presence. The spirit was from another kingdom, a powerful, wicked enemy of Urenma and her people. A voice had summoned it to Akuta's shrine where Obinze's body lay. In the river world, a blast was heard. The elder gods knew what it meant. Urenma had reopened the sealed portal to the world of men. Inside the dungeon, as battle raged between rogue spirits and the army of the elder gods, the plant deposited a revived Obinze back on the surface of the ground. Obinze didn't need an invitation to join the battle. As soon as he jumped up from the ground, he began to attack every spirit he saw around him. When the army of elder gods spotted him, they pressed against him. Obinze was not fazed. He made a stand and pressed back against them. Because rogue spirits hated everything the gods stood for, they raised a cry to help Obinze and joined him to press against the army of elder gods until they pushed them out of the dungeon. When Urenma saw a swarm of fighting spirits against Obinze, she called for help. A mighty army of ruthless and angry princesses descended on the battleground. When the elder gods saw that the event which they had for ageless time been trying to stop was about to begin, They swung into the battle and brought the whole madness to a halt. Without much ado, Nsha demanded that Obinze remove himself from the river world. To his surprise, Obinze dug his heels in and demanded that Urenma be given to him, having fulfilled the task which was given to him. However, Nsha snarled, "The gift I will let you leave here with is your head still on your shoulders. The gods are done allowing mortals marry their princesses. Leave now or die." From the crowd a voice echoed, "If you as a god will not honor your word, I as a princess will no longer honor my place as a princess of the gods. I shall fight beside the mortal until his wish you grant. Who is on my side?" The army of angry and ruthless princesses moved toward Urenma and shouted, "By your side we shall fight till we be subdued." Nsha and the elder gods didn't like that. They alone could subdue Urenma and the spirits who had decided to rebel against them. But a battle against the children of the gods would come at a great cost, so the elder gods decided to sit and make a decision on the fate of Urenma and Obinze. For 3 days the gods communed over how to proceed concerning the mortal Obinze, who was bent on taking their princess back to the world of men as wife. After their deliberations, they decided that having made Obinze a promise that if he fulfilled the task given to him, he would be allowed to leave with Urenma. They announced that they would allow Obinze and Urenma live yet again as husband and wife. This time they would allow her live a full lifetime, die as mortal and then return to the river world to resume her duties as the princess of the gods. When the decision of the gods were announced, the princesses went into celebrations, and the previous war scenes were replaced with joyful revelries. The gods had acted in wisdom and avoided a battle which would have destroyed the river world. Obinze and Urenma were overjoyed. Obinze couldn't wait to leave the river world with Urenma, but there were procedures to follow. Urenma had a body which was still in a grave in Uke. The gods need to send thunder to exhume it and deposit it in Nwangele River before Urenma would retake that body and return to Uke. So Obinze was sent back to the world of men to go repossess his body and make preparations for the return of his wife. When Obinze woke up in his body from the journey to the river world, a mountainous being was standing next to him. There was nothing like it which Obinze had seen before. Not even Utebe looked as monstrous and dangerous as the beast he saw in Akuta's shrine. Obinze tried to shake off the fear which seized his heart but could not. It was as if a palpable cloud of fear literally enveloped him. Not even in the river world did he feel anything like it. In the beast's hand was a machete which glistened in the sunlight. The entire length of the blade was longer than Obinze's height. Obinze thought how in the world he would be able to stand the creature in a fight. The beast took 2 steps backward as if inviting Obinze to a fight. Obinze tried to stand up but could not. Just then the monster raised its left hand to the sky and said, "I am from the kingdom above. A voice summoned me to this place. Take this." When he said that, Obin stood up and took a few steps towards him, as if the voice of the creature controlled him. "In the day your strength shall fail you, Obiako Obinze shall be remembered. When you get home, give him this," the monster continued. Obin stretched forth his hand. The beast dropped a small wooden ring. Continuing, the monster said, "The covenant has been broken by they that dwell in the water, but in that day, they that dwell above shall come." Raising its 2 hands to the sky, the beast shut itself into the cloud like a Scud missile, and the cloud covered it. Immediately, Obinze snapped out of the fear which overwhelmed him. It had been a long time since anyone heard from Obinze. There was no word if he was alive or dead. But weeks before his shocking return to Uke, there was a mighty rain and thunderstorm. The thunder strikes the people of Uke saw that day were unlike any they had known in their history. In the midst of the thunder strikes, Urenma's grave was smashed wide open and her bones removed. Okiki and Ongbankwo, Urenma's mortal parents, began to go from one medicine man to another to know the meaning of Urenma's bones being removed from her grave by thunder strikes. The meaning was too dark and hidden from the medicine men. Meanwhile, Obinze's son Obiakor had begun to act like his father Obinze. In his tender age, he had begun to hunt and wrestle. Many medicine men and soothsayers predicted that he shall be greater than his father. Obiako was not just loved and respected, he was feared. Olachi, Obiakor's sister, made Urenma look ugly in her beauty. The entire land of Uka knew that someday the 2 children would achieve greater things than their parents. But in the meantime, they were awed by the thunderstorm which removed Urenma's bones from her grave. On a certain Eek market day, the sound of music was heard heading toward Uke, and a large crowd followed a man. Uke did not know what the celebration was for. Obinze had drawn a crowd to himself as he passed through villages on his way to Uke. The legend who saved their lands when Ogidi came and had gone to the lands of the spirit to bring back his wife was on his way back home. When Obinze and the entourage which followed him drew near to the Eek market, people came out to see what the sound of music was for, and there in the midst of overly excited men and women was Obinze. The effect of Obinze's return was beyond words. In Uke and the lands around it, a big celebration began. To impress Obinze, young men came to wrestle at the village square. Foods and drinks were made available by the rich men of Uke and the villages around them. When Obinze had peeled himself away from the people who swarmed around him, he blocked off time for his children and Urenma's parents. They were the only ones he told the details of his journey to the river world. However, he did not tell them about the beast from the sky and the small wooden ring. In a few days Urenma shall return. In battles I won her hand in marriage. Ngbankwo and Okiki were filled with joy. They didn't mind her being a goddess. She was their daughter for all they cared. Obiako and Olachi cried in excitement that their mother was coming back. When Ngbankwo and Okiki left to attend to their increasing guest, Obiako and Olachi jumped on Obinze and wouldn't let go of him. In between some hunter with his father, Obiako would pinch him to know if he was still human. "Papa, you mean you fought against spirits and beat them?" quizzed Obiako. "Yes, I fought them and many for that matter. I also beheld the gods, my eyes saw them. I have some friends there now." "You do?" asked Olachi. "Yes, Ola, a plant and a fish. They helped me in my most challenging time. And when your mother was imprisoned in a cage, the fish helped her." "What? They put my mother in a cage? Which of the spirits did that?" asked Obiako. "The gods." "I see. Someday I shall go there to take a wife and the gods shall tell me why they put my mother in a cage," boasted Obiako. "Obiako, the river world is not a place you want to go. If not for love, I wouldn't have gone there." "Papa, you have just returned. Soon you will hear of me. I am Omekana Yaa, a son who behaves like his father. Everything you have done so far I shall do and much more. I see your grandmother has been feeding you stories. Even me, Papa, a prince shall come from the river world to marry me," said Olachi. "So Ola, you will go to live in the river world?" "No, the prince shall live here in Uke with me." "I can see that you two have planned your future already. I have to leave now to go and speak with the elders. In a few days your mother shall return." Obinze's children grudgingly let him go. When he sat with the elders, Obinze told them the much he could and explained the thunderstorm. "That was the gods preparing to return my wife Urenma. In a few days she shall be with us. When she returns, we shall give her a great feast. And also the post you left as the chief of all the lands around us is still waiting for you," responded the elders. "I have no desire for that position now. I have missed my family for long. Maybe when my wife returns we will discuss if I should take it again." And so the preparations were made in readiness to welcome her. Days and weeks passed, and there was no sign of Urenma. Obinze began to wonder if the gods had beguiled him and locked his wife in a cage again. To make matters worse, Akuta, the Medin's man who helped him cross into the river world, was dead. To say the least, Obinze was worried. However, when people asked him about Urenma's return, he would answer cheerfully that she would soon be with them. Sick and tired of waiting for their mother to return, one early morning, Obiako and Olachi set to Nwangele River to demand that the gods return their mother to them. When they reached the river, Obiako was the first to speak. "Hear me, ye spirits under this river. Your sin of refusing to release my mother to her family, and that of putting her in a cage, are amongst many sins whose consequences you shall bear. I shall find a way into the river world in this life or in another, and when I leave, there shall be no river world. I am Obiako Obinze, the son of a goddess and a warrior who fought spirits and prevailed. I am not like my father. I am half human and a half spirit, and this you know well. I demand that this day you release Urenma, my mother, or wait for my wrath." Obiako cast some local currency into the river and stepped aside for his sister to address the gods in Nwangele.